We're talking with Columbus legend lacrosse coach Bill Wolford. Bill, you're one of the most unique coaches because you coached a high school team and a pro team at the same time. And I want to start with this simple question because it's something I've always wanted to ask you. So on Thursday, you're at a high school practice, and then all of a sudden, at some point during that season, you got to walk onto a pro field. Now, the very first time you did that, most guys at least go to high school to college to the pros. You took that step. You got to talk me through the brain. You're a teacher. You got to talk me through the brain process of what that was like, because it had to freak you out, even as good as you are. It had to freak you out a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, it was. I didn't know what to expect to begin with, and once I started to figure out what my role was, I was more or less another set of eyes. I kind of grew into the role as coach as you got to know the players better. They knew what you were about. There were times when we were doing scrimmages or something, and someone would ask me a question about, how, where to slide from, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'll get right back to you. So, I didn't want to give them the wrong answer. I didn't want to say, and didn't want to appear to, not know what the hell I was talking about. But, it just took a while. And once you started, to build that relationship, I don't think, later on, as the machine got better and the chemistry improved, nobody cared where you came from. You were there to help. You were there to do what you could do to do your job to make the team better. So yeah, at first, we had talked about, I know my first game, we're sitting at Marine Corps Stadium playing the Bayhawks, and my head was just absolutely spinning. The game was so fast. And, about the third quarter, things had finally, slowed down to the point where, I could follow the ball. And then gradually you became, more used to it. And it got to the point where when we got to doing the, officiating the boys' games, the high school games, and even the girls' games, the game was, to me, really slow. So anticipating and expecting and kind of knowing where the ball was going to go just became so much easier for me to follow.
I should mention the team we're talking about is the Howe Machine, and I think Bear Davis was the head coach in that program.
Bear was Bearfield, and Ted Garber, who was followed at UMass, and P.J. Kavanaugh was our other assistant. P.J.'s at Worcester now, and they were the first couple years when I think we won a total of 4 games in 2 years, which was kind of tough. And then when they changed the leadership, I decided that I thought it was important for me to stay on to kind of be the go-between between the preceding group and Bear coming in. And I coached against Bear when he was playing in high school. So I stuck around, and the draft certainly made things much better. And then, I just saw where, Tommy Schreiber was voted, the best player in the world. And obviously the things he did for our team with everybody else that was, added on was, Kyle Harrison and Marcus Holman. That was just a dream to work with that bunch of guys.
Was there a point that you just said, okay, in your brain, was there a point during that first game or 2 or 3 where it was like, okay, I'm home? It's just coaching. It's just a different level.
Yeah. I think the more you understood, what we were trying to do, you just got used to the speed of the game. Your brain caught up, and the hardest part was, and not that I was very good at it, but when you're trying to run the box, and when you're so used to watching both ends and yelling at the officials and doing this and doing that, and you got to pay attention to what you're doing because you're missing subs, or you're putting too many guys on, or not enough, or it got really crazy. So it was a great lesson for me to just kind of lock in and pay attention to one particular thing.
I believe in high school, high school coaches are great for in-game sort of strategy. College, it's, I think, probably a little combination of both practice and in-game strategy. I would think at the professional level, it's all really about pre-game and predetermination before the game, getting guys set up at that point. I think that
right.
Is that a fair analysis?
I think that I was always amazed at how many of the guys knew the personnel of the teams we were playing. This guy's a righty, this guy's a lefty. This guy likes to roll back. This guy's doing this. You watch this goalie, his first move is low. You watched a lot of film. You didn't have a lot of chance. I mean, you got to practice Friday night. If you were lucky, and assuming everybody got to, made the flight in, so you practiced for an hour and a half. If you're lucky, then you got an hour Saturday morning, and then you played, Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening. So, they're training on their own, but they're watching a ton of film, and the guys were really good. And again, at this time, there were 8 teams, 9 teams. So there weren't an overabundance of players that you had to know about. So they were really good about knowing, who they were playing against and what they had to do. So, I mean, we were forever talking to the shooters, to know your scout. You got to know your scout. You got to know where to shoot. I think that was probably the game as we got to the professional side was probably more of a mental game than anything else.
I've got to ask a question. In every high school team, every college team, there's a sort of eclectic value of personalities. There's the hard workers, there's the free spirits, there's all various kinds of guys. Was there anybody that played that you ran across at the pro level that was maybe like the sort of lazy, or maybe, he had more talent than desire, or was it more just everybody's kind of the same personality?
What was interesting was,
I'm saying just generally.
Yeah, there was always somebody that made everybody accountable. So if you were slacking, they'd let you know, and they would pull you right in and get in your face. And I mean, if you didn't perform, you weren't going to be on the field. But I always loved it when, and everybody from time to time, would take a step back, whatever. And somebody like a Kyle Harrison would grab you and pull you back in. Another great example, I can remember the end of the third quarter when we were playing Denver in the championship game in Texas, and we had taken a timeout, and Marcus Holman came in, and he just commanded the entire huddle and basically said, quit doing your own thing, do your job, right? Play as a team, do your job, and at that point in time, things just clicked, and it was like we hit a button and off we went, and we won going away. But that, guys like Marcus Holman just were the backbone and the heart of the team, and there was, like I said, there was always somebody that was going to make sure that everybody was doing their job.
Marcus's dad, who's now the head coach at Utah, Brian, was on the show, and I think Marcus probably learned a little bit of that at home, because both he and his mom and dad were both Division I college athletes, so he grew up in that atmosphere.
Right.
That changes the concept. We're talking with Bill Wolford, who is one of the better coaches that you'll ever want to meet from the Columbus area. My name is Greg Normand. I am repeating that because I'm the host of the Michigan Lacrosse Review. And Bill, I appreciate you spending some time with us. I wanted to suggest, as we were talking in the first part of the show, you kind of set a trend. You're a high school guy who coached the pros. Now Jim Stagnata back in Maryland, I believe, is stepped up to be a high school coach while he's coaching in the PLL. And I think that Andy Towers is doing the same thing. So you might have been a sort of a trendsetter to some extent. Some of those guys. either says you're a trendsetter or professional lacrosse is just so poorly paid that you got to get a second gig. That would be
No,
part of that whole thing.
you know what? I still think it's just a great opportunity to, and again, I've said this, you know, it's all about the relationships, and coaching, you know, taking my whole plan when I was lucky enough, you know, with the machine at first, Ted Garber was looking for, you know, people to fill his coaching staff, and I was lucky enough. Ted was coaching the Nationals or whatever it was when we had the first game. It was at Crew Stadium in 2000, and I was coaching. Wasn't coaching. I was basically subbing the attackman on, you know, for the other team. So we got to know each other a little bit then. And he asked brother Ted to coach first, and Teddy couldn't do it because he was a head coach, didn't have time, and I was coaching the girls, and you know, my schedule was much more flexible, so I was able to jump in from that point, to work with the machine, and you know, my whole thing was take what they're doing at this level and try and tweak it and change it and make it work for the girls. And I mean, that was kind of, you know, my whole idea is how can I take these things in practice, these things in games, and stick work, you name it, and make it fit to the girls' game so that, you know, we can be better. And I think it worked pretty well for us.
You mentioned Teddy. We're talking about your brother, Teddy Wolford, longtime Upper Arlington legend, who's has a field named after him. And I think that's when you finally figure out that you must be a legend, because if your name's on a field, you must have done something right. So
yeah,
I want to take you all the way back. You started in Columbus. You started playing lacrosse. Do you remember the first time you picked up a stick?
We were playing in phys ed in junior high school. We were lucky enough to have some of the guys from the old Columbus Lacrosse Club come over to. I went to Upper Arlington High School, so this was in middle school, and I can remember, you know, picking up that old wooden stick, and the number of times I tried to throw a ball, and the ball would end up being behind me, you know, and it took you a while to figure it out, that big old heavy stick, and then somebody thought that it would be really funny if we broke a stick over somebody's back, you know, just goofing around, and you know, it was neat to be able to see how the sticks had changed. I think my freshman year at Ohio State, I think there might have been there was like a Brian Superlight, it might have been a PL66, and there might have been like the Sam and Barney with the STX. Now there might have been 4 different types of sticks, and you look at them now, and I have no idea, you know, what the sticks are, but I can remember just breaking the Superlight. They look like popsicle sticks, but they were so brittle, and I can't tell you how many we would go through. But yeah, it was you know, pretty archaic. You know, it was just I was very fortunate to be in a position to be able to play, you know, early on, to play in high school. You know, we would come up to Michigan and play Country Day and Cranbrook, and then we would go to Pittsburgh, and we would play Shady Side Academy in Swickley. Yeah. So that was about it. There were 2 teams in Columbus. We had, you know, Worthington and Upper Arlington, and then, you know, Western Reserve came along. And this would have been, you know, mid to early 70s. So travel was a huge part of the game.
You know, the schools you're mentioning, either they're private schools or they're very well-to-do suburban public schools.
Yeah.
You ever wonder how a sport like lacrosse, which is given to the Native Americans, ended up as a prep school gem rather than it sort of being a more mass type sport?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. That's a good question, and I think that anybody that was ever exposed, you know, to the game of lacrosse, especially as it moved, you know, obviously, you know, further west, had their roots in some kind of prep school, you know, back east. So that's, I think that would probably explain most of it, why, it was a prep school game, or I don't want to say elite, but at the time you didn't have very many schools playing.
What position you play in high school?
I played attack and midfield. So I never did play much defense. That was never in my contract. Even when I played club ball, give me the ball on the offensive end and I'm happy.
When you played more than one sport at Arlington?
Yeah, I played. Well, I was playing baseball in the spring until my friends yanked me out of baseball. I played football and lacrosse. So those are the two that kind of go hand in hand. So most of our buddies played both football and lacrosse.
You coming out of high school, you're a retired teacher now, long-term teacher. Did you know that you wanted to be a teacher when you went to Ohio State, or was that something you always wanted to do?
I think it was more, you figured out that you wanted to be involved in coaching, and that the coaching side led to the teaching side, which led you back to the coaching. And I think my first year teaching, I think I had probably 2 weeks off because I was coaching football, I was coaching girls basketball, and then coaching lacrosse. So it was first couple years were kind of wild.
Are you a teacher or a coach? And my point to that is in retrospect, I believe that teachers have a much better understanding of education than non-teachers like me. Doesn't mean I don't have the ability to coach, but I think I really believe that they're two different animals. I really do.
So my answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
So you're coach and you're teaching, and when I'm in the classroom, I'm coaching. So there's really not a big separation, in the two. I go back to the whole idea of relationships. One should develop that relationship, and sometimes I wasn't good at it, and other times I was better at it. It just kind of took me a while, and I think I told you this, last time we talked, that, man, I wish I knew 20 years ago, what I know now. And as a matter of fact, my stick skills are probably better than they were when I was in college or high school. I know that for a fact because you're doing more things and the stick's always in your hand. And, everything, when we do a camp, whatever, it's always with the girls' stick. And I think I take a lot of pride in, especially doing, the camp with the boys and doing what they're doing with the guy stick, and I'm doing it with the girl stick. And they're like, how do you do that? And I love changing sticks. Here, you try it and see how that works. And it just gives them a better appreciation, for the girls' game. Stick
skills may have improved, but it's hard to play lacrosse from a wheelchair. That's part of that. And I just a really brief story. I'm a ski coach in the winter. When I'm in my mid-30s, the run in outside of Vail at Beaver Creek is the Birds of Prey. And there's a hill. There's a part on the hill where they have a jugs gun that you can find out how fast you're going. And at the time, I was probably doing 75, 76, and the pros were, the World Cup guys were probably 92, 93. Well, getting close to that 80-mile-an-hour mark is a pretty good thing. So 2 years ago out there, I decided we're going to take the same run, and got my suit on and my helmet, and down I went. I was absolutely convinced I was doing 100 miles an hour. There's no doubt. It was a hard-packed whole field, and I think I came through at 51 or 49 or something. It's almost a pitch, and I lost 40 miles an hour, but in my brain, it was a lot faster than that. So it just, our perspective changes the way we think about things. But I think our cerebral understanding is certainly, much improved with age. But, don't put an old head on a young body, right? I think that's part of that lesson.
Oh, right. I know the last time I played was at Placid, with the old guys, and we had a guy that was like 63 running midfield that was running circles around me. But I think it took me like 6 months to walk normally. Just limping and limping. So I said, I wasn't so much worried about me. I was more worried about, someone trying to blow me up. I think I've gotten smart and decided that, I think I'm better off, on the sideline than trying to put the ball in the back of the net still.
When you played your 4 years at Ohio State, what was it? It wasn't the Great Western. What was the conference in those days?
It was the Midwest. Uh, it was the Midwest League, and it was before. That might have been the first or second year that they had the differentiation between the D1 and D2. So Denison and Wesleyan were the rule and the roost, and Kenyon was good. So we would play Ashland. We played Notre Dame before Kevin Corrigan had gotten there. We played Syracuse my senior year, and I got to go against John Desco. That was kind of fun. We lost by 3 touchdowns, but it was a good experience. And that was the year. This would have been 1979, the year that they tried to speed the game up. So they took the face-off out, and we had probably 2 of the best face-off guys in the country. We had the year before in '78 won our league. We were 14-1, and with the exact same team back, made it just a shade over 500 with the change in the rules where after a goal, the other team got the ball at the midfield, and it just made a big, huge difference in how we played.
Ohio is filtered with all kinds of those D3 schools. And in the day, one of the threads that we've talked about in the show quite a bit is that D3 teams like Denison were, on par with some of the Division I teams. And there were a lot of Division III teams that – what was, in your mind, what was the reason that those teams were so good? I think they faded because of the growth of the sport, and there's more D1 teams playing. But how did those teams –
I think that the biggest difference between, say, Ohio Wesleyan and even Kenyon and Denison were that the kids that were playing at that time had been playing longer. Their lacrosse IQ was much greater. They played more of a finesse game where us Midwestern boys came up and we'd knock your head off as soon as look at you, and gradually you figured out that there's a great side of this game that deals with the finesse part. But I think the fact that kids have been playing since they were in grade school, and we had a kid, Dan Anderson, who was all city Toledo quarterback, had never played at Ohio State, and in a matter of 2 years, he was all league and probably one of the best face-off guys around. Just a brute. But I mean, had that kid been playing, since grade school, who knows how good he could have been. But I think the biggest difference was just those teams had more experience, had a greater IQ, better stick skills. They weren't better athletes, I can tell you that much. And I think that's kind of where we kind of caught up.
A school like Kenyon would be a good example because Kenyon gets a lot of its student body from back east, a lot of Long Island, New York, Baltimore kids. So maybe it just was that pipeline back into having some of those kinds of kids that played.
I never understood. You'd go up to Ohio Wesleyan and Delaware, and you'd see Connecticut, New Jersey plates everywhere. They had that pipeline. The same thing. All the Baltimore kids coming from playing at Denison. So they had that those feeders that came in, and here we had 2 high schools in Ohio at the time. So
we used to come down and play in the mid-'70s, the mid-2000s, 2003, 4, 5, 6, and into the rest of that decade. We used to come to Columbus a lot because I believe that Columbus was 10 years ahead of Michigan. And if you went to camp, we used to come to Ohio State with same kind of thing. We always felt like we were 10 years behind. When did Columbus become sort of not equal to maybe the East Coast, but when did they start to become a force? Much like a Denver, much like a San Diego.
Right. That's I look back to, one of the kids that kind of put Columbus on the map, and it was Sean Trill. Sean Trill played at Arlington, and Sean went to Hobart and was, the goalie of the year, was the, tournament, NCAA tournament player, the tournament. And he kind of opened some people's eyes. And then, there were a handful of kids that Teddy had cranked out. So this would have been, probably the mid-'80s. Brett Hughes, that was an All-American at Virginia. Brandon Shook that played at Hopkins, Brett Hughes, amazing, played, in the pros for how many, played with us with the machine for a number of years. And then he started feeding kids to Maryland and Loyola. And I think at that point in time, these coaches were going, holy cow, we got to start looking at these kids, from the Midwest, because not only were they, unbelievable athletes, but, they were, getting to be some pretty skilled kids. So I think it was probably about the mid-'80s when things really started to take off.
I'm going to make an obvious statement, but I think the direct correlation to having a coaching base that knows what they're doing grew in the 70s and into the 80s. And then by the time you get to the middle to late 80s, that ability you can't have great players without great coaches. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I look and see the guys that probably influenced me most were the guys that I was, coaching against, every other week, whatever. So, I look at, brother Ted, Chris Gallagher at Worthington, and you were always trying to do something, to one-up them. That was your season, how you played against, Upper Arlington or how you played against Worthington. It wasn't about, how you played against some of these other teams. It was how you fared, against the best. And you were always trying to figure out a way, whether it be X's and O's or how you trained or whatever. And I think it made everybody better.
And I guess my point is that if you talk to the guys from Central New York or Long Island or Baltimore, the foundation of coaches that they had was a larger foundation than it would have been in Columbus or Detroit. And that as your foundation grew, more kids got exposed to a game by better people who know how to teach it. I don't think that's with the occasional anomaly that would come out of an area because he was just a gifted athlete. You started to produce a lot of athletes because the sport grew. There's more kids playing, and I think that was part of that. So as you've identified, like I said, I think the 1980s, we always looked at Michigan as being slightly behind that by 10 years. And I think we look now, I think our numbers of high schools in Michigan are close to the same as Ohio. There's about 140, 150 schools playing lacrosse.
Right.
And I think the coaching bases have gotten better because you've got Zoom, because you've got all kinds of activity that you're able to learn more from things. As you pointed out earlier, how much more do we know today? I go back to even 2000, and would have loved to have known what I know now. But that's just not necessarily the way it happens. Now, you coached.
Well,
go ahead.
I think, too, with the, I'm looking at the old, I'm trying to remember the name of the gloves, the back rack gloves that we used to wear. I can remember my first pair of gloves that I got at Ohio State. First thing we did, we taped all the fingers backwards just to break them in. Then we took them out in the parking lot and ran them over with our cars to break them in. You look at the equipment the kids are wearing today, handling a stick was so much easier. The sticks are so much better. The way everybody trains. Everybody's so much smarter, and we do things now that I never did, early on. So it couldn't help but make you a better player.
Well, I think some of it, I really believe a superstar is a superstar in any age. If you'd have taken Jim Brown and put him today, he'd still be as dominant because he'd had the training techniques of what we have now. I think the marginal players are the ones that drop by the wayside. I think there's more of them because of the things that we do. But I think superb athletes are superb athletes. I can still throw a football 60 yards. Now, I can't run 5 feet, but I can still throw a football. So I think that comes with the territory. So it kind of leads me. Talk a little bit about the early days of coaching high school in Columbus. Where'd you start? Where was your first job, head coach?
My first, I was teaching in Worthington, so which is just a suburb north of just down the road from Ohio State. So I was an assistant for a couple of years, and just based on my own playing experience and what we had done in college, you start to develop your base of knowledge. I spent a year as an assistant at Ohio State, which I think kind of opened my eyes a little bit, and then had my first head coaching job at Upper Arlington in 1987. Learning how to manage people again, I go back to that. I think that was, where I probably had to grow the most. Teaching kids to pass and throw and how to run a simple offense, that, pretty easy. And we had some, pretty good athletes that were coming out of Upper Arlington. So, just, the mind game, trying to teach, how to think the game was probably a little bit more difficult than anything else.
Somewhere along the high school game, you got involved with your daughter is the head coach at Kent State, if I'm not mistaken?
Margaret is Wittenberg.
Wittenberg.
And Jack,
and your daughter's playing at Kent State.
Jackie's a freshman at Kent State, right.
You started coaching girls probably, 15 years ago?
I started in, 2007.
So
it was 2007. So
the transition is you have two daughters, so it makes sense that you would
right, and that was kind of why. Yeah, and what I found interesting was that I looked back to like we coached, and coming from the guys' side, we had done, we brought the guys' game to the girls' side, and now I think if you look at it, I mean the girls' game is pretty much a hybrid game with so many things, running the two-man plays and everything that the women are doing now that came from the box lacrosse. But I think from 2008 to for 10 years, to 2018, we'd had, and I was coaching the offense, we'd had two girls every year that had scored 100 points or more, and that had never happened before. So, we're putting up some numbers where, just doing some things a little bit differently, and more from a guy's, viewpoint. I think that helped, and the kids loved it. The girls loved doing the run and gun and all the transition stuff that we did that was basic, the basis for, just about every practice we ever did.
Was a transition from boys to girls not unlike the transition from high school to going to the Iowa machine?
You know what? The transition from boys to girls, for me, it was really kind of easy. I loved it because the girls would listen to you. They wanted to, they were like sponge. They were soaking things up. A lot of the guys, they already knew stuff, and they didn't like being told what to do. They could do their own thing, and I'm not saying all of them, but there was a big difference. The girls were, I think they were easier to coach, and I think I had to kind of change the way I did things. You kind of had to explain a little bit more. You had to reason. You had to explain why we're doing things. What's the purpose behind this? Why should we do this? Which I probably should have done more on the boys' side, but you learn your lessons as you go.
I took the Michigan State women's job, having never had a daughter nor a sister, and I was thrown into the job with the idea of trying to build a varsity program at Michigan State. And my first 6 months coming driving home from East Lansing, I would almost cry every night because I just did not have a clue. But it made me such a better coach. And when I did get back to the boys' side, and the other part of that is that a fair? You had daughters, but now you've got a large group of young ladies to coach. Did it make you a better coach on the men's side?
Well, I think there's any question. The more you can expand your view of things, the more you take in, the better it's gonna make you. I can apply, this concept from this game to this. You take some box, you throw it in with the girls, and you take field and you throw it in with a little bit of everything. So I don't think there's any question. Being able, the more you can do, the better rounded that you're going to be.
Plunging into the girls' world, did you feel at any point discriminated against because you were a guy from the, there's one of those guys coming over because, he thinks you know. Did you ever feel that way?
I got to be careful. From the women's side, or from the players, no. I think
the administrative end of it.
So not from the administrative end at all. It was more when we was on the field, and the fellow that I'm coaching with, when you had an all-male coaching staff and you had a female officials crew, sometimes they would kind of look down their nose at you, and you might not get the same calls that you would expect. So, you get over that. You deal with it.
I got involved in the administrative side of club intercollegiate lacrosse in an administrative role of being a president of the WCLL and part of the national WCLA board and things. And it took me a little while to learn how to resell arguments, because I thought common sense made sense. But you'd come up with a good idea, and it would automatically, I'd be sometimes only two guys and, a very large group of women. And I thought we had a really good idea, and they agreed it was a good idea, but we weren't going to do it. Well, why? Because it was your idea. So you have to sort of work it through, and it was an interesting lesson for me in politics, because I just kind of bulldozed things straight ahead, and you had to learn to be a little more finesse. And again, if I had a sister or a daughter, maybe that would have been a change. But I think part of the women's landscape over the last 10 years has changed from allowing bigger, faster, stronger women to be stars in women's lacrosse. And I think a lot of women's rules were sort of set in place to prohibit a bigger, stronger, faster athlete from taking advantage. And I think
give you an example of that. This would have been 2009. The All-American Committee had decided that if you got a certain percentage of red cards in your games, you wouldn't be eligible to be an All-American. And daughter Margaret, her junior year, was an All-American. And Margaret was a lot bigger than some of the other girls. And a lot of times when two bodies collide, regardless of who fouled, the bigger girl was the one that was going to get the card. And she accumulated, too many cards that basically made her ineligible to repeat as an All-American. And they have since removed that rule. And for the life of me, I never understood why they would, handicap somebody like that, which goes right back to the, bigger, faster, stronger thing. It didn't make sense.
In a game at Virginia Beach in the WCLA playoffs, national championships, one of the first rounds, we had a 1-goal lead on Utah. We had 40 seconds left in the game, and I called timeout. You told me something that I try to play. Essentially, the play was young lady runs to the corner, and then two young ladies run right in front of her and stand there with their sticks up. And the young lady standing behind him holds the stick out of bounds so that you still have possession. So I thought we would try this, and we did, and we killed the 40 seconds because they didn't know what to do with it. When we were done, the people running the tournament, who were not necessarily friendly to innovation, kind of came over and said, "What was that?" And I said, "It was strategy. It was you had to kill the ball. I didn't want to drop the ball, and we won the game." Yeah. Was there anything illegal what we did? No. So a couple of nights later, we played a team that went into a very compacted zone. We were a very fast team. So we had a stall. I just have her come over to the sidelines and stand next to me. And we would do that for 30, 40 seconds at a crack until we brought them out, and we had a backdoor cut and a play, and we'd score. Right. I thought that was just good strategy. I thought it was Dean Smith, four corners approach. And
it was the old armadillo from Washington and Lee.
Right.
And, early 70s.
At the banquet that last night, you thought I had, I'd gotten into their cars and stolen all the radios. I mean, it was amazing the I don't know, anger is necessarily, or at least that's not the way we play this game. I just found it to be interesting. Now, eventually, I think as the sport's evolved, it's gotten to be in a better place. And I think those are the growing pains. But I think that comes with it. You think they've climbed that ladder of progress enough now to be where they should be, or do you still think they have some?
Well, I tell you what, in the college game, the 90-second shot clock has made a huge difference. So you're forced to play, which is what you want. It was really frustrating when we would play teams and 6-7 minutes left in the game, and they would go into their stall. So you had to develop strategies to defend that, and sometimes it didn't work, and every once in a while it might. But it just I think it took the flow of the game and such a great game that it is, and really, I think it just kind of made it ugly. So having, adding the shot clock, the 90-second shot clock, and the college women's game. I'm not sure they'll ever do, a shot clock. I'm not sure I want a shot clock in high school. But I think by forcing the speed of play and just athletically, I think the kids want to play. You don't want to stand around with the ball and, play keep way like they used to. So I think they're definitely, the free movement. Gosh, I love the free movement. It's so much better than people used to call it freeze tag. The free movement is so much better. And the flow of the game has gotten so much better, even the high school game and the college game. So it's a lot more fun to coach a game. And the kids love playing where they can be a little bit more physical and they can run more than what they had in the past.
Last couple questions. If you had one place to coach for the next 10 years, and all the places you've been, female, male, high school, college, pros, what was the most fun sideline game day for you?
The most fun, well, I mean, that's kind of an easy one. I think, the last couple of years that we finished, lost in the championship game, in Atlanta and winning in Dallas with the Machine, the incredible group of people, some real characters, some fun people to be around. I mean, guys like, Nick Alexander and Scotty Rogers, and just, the great players that we had, and just the chemistry and the goofy stuff that happened in the locker room, before and after the game and before practice, and the silly thing. It was amazing. These guys would always have a soccer ball at practice, and at the end of practice, soccer broke out, and guys are, kicking on the goals and play. I mean, it was just fun. I mean, it was just, I love coaching the girls. It's just, you live for it. I tell them all the time that coming to practice is my favorite part of the day. But I think, probably those last 2 years, with the Machine was about as much fun and as rewarding as just about, anything I'd done.
Bill, is coaching an avocation or a disease for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Your heart beats a little faster when you know you're going to go to practice that day. Is that a fair statement to make?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You get a little pep in your step, and we're going to try something new today. And today you're going to shoot behind your back. We're going to try something new. So it's just something you just look forward to. And having that season taken away from us, last spring was really tough. So, we're just chomping at the bit to get back at it.
Give me some advice to old guys who still want to coach. What would you tell an old guy who isn't quite sure, and what advice would you give a young coach?
Well, again, I go back, you have to develop the relationships, and just if it's not fun, it's not worth it. You gotta have fun. Stick with the fundamentals. Do what you know. Do what you can to learn new things. And the one thing that I'm forever telling Jackie, my youngest, and the kids too, is if you're gonna be good, you got to get out of your comfort zone. You got to get out of your comfort zone. I have a picture in the locker room where there's a little circle down here, and then there's a big circle that's detached from that little circle. And in that big circle that's detached, it says, "This is where magic happens." So, it's an old Jack Nicklaus thing. It's, you gotta be comfortable being uncomfortable. And I think if you can, develop that mindset, that growth mindset where, we're making decisions in practice every day. I want you to be uncomfortable. It's good to be uncomfortable. You're going to get better every day.
What would you tell the old coaches?
Same thing.
Okay.
Same thing.
The message doesn't change.
I don't think it doesn't matter. And first of all, when you say old coaches, you don't want to act like an old. You want to get out there and jump around. I still think that if I can't do what I'm asking the kids to do, I'm not going to ask them to do it. So I'm not sure I'm going to go run a 6-minute mile with them, but in terms of stick work or demonstrating a dodge or something, I want to be a model. I want to model it for them.
I want to touch on one last thing because it just hit me last night during a seminar that Jamie Monroe was doing for the coaches here in Michigan. Jamie talked about spending a lot of time away from organized practices. Go out like basketball, like you would in the backyard. So whether it's speed lacrosse, whether it's tennis balls and some sticks in a garbage can. I use the U.S. ski team model. We used to practice. When we practice, we would run gates 70% of the time. We now free ski 70% of the time. Get them away and enjoy the process.
Right.
Would you give that as an endorsement that the more they do in the backyard, the more?
Go play basketball. Play basketball. I remember, Steele Stanwyck that had played with us and was, the women's offensive coordinator at Hopkins. And I can remember him talking to Jackie, and he said, the girls that get it are the girls that watch the guys' game and play basketball. And go play pickup. Just go get some people and goof around and you don't have to be organized. Just get out and do some different things and go play tennis, go play basketball. Go do some different things and get this crossover and practice should be something that it's a privilege. It's a joy to do every day. It's not something you have to do.
Well, listen, I wanted to thank you for spending some time with us. I know I've said a couple times during the interview that you're the smartest guy I know. It's always fun. Well, it's always fun and hard to interview somebody that you have some background with. It's easy to interview somebody where you've read a dossier or some Wikipedia information. But I've had, we're not the closest of friends, but we've known each other a while. And I've had such great respect for the way you do things. And if you guys will listen to if you listen to what some of the older guys say, I think sometimes you learn some things. And, I don't think you ever thought that I would take that out of bounds stall and work it, but I actually did that because I was my second year into the process and it worked. But I really appreciate both your friendship and the time you spent with us. Yeah. And I wish you.
I appreciate you asking me to jump in with you, and I consider it quite an honor.
Well, you have a good holiday, Billy. I appreciate your time.
I'll do that. You do the same.